So you own a home in New York City, you're thinking about your next move. Maybe you want to upgrade, maybe you're relocating, maybe your life has just changed, but now you're facing the big question. Should you sell your place or keep it and rent it out? I'm Joseph Ranola with the Bridge and Boro Team here at Real Broker, and this is one of the most common questions I get from homeowners. The answer is different for everyone. And today I'm going to walk you through exactly how to think about it so that you can make the right call for your situation. So let's start with the financial side, because that's usually the main driver, right? That's going to be the main thing that decides whether or not this makes sense. It comes down to the money, like everything else in life for the most part. So the first thing you need to figure out is whether your property would actually make you money as a rental. And I don't mean just covering the mortgage, I mean covering everything. Mortgage, property taxes, homeowners insurance, common charges, maintenance fees, if it's a condo or co-op. And you need to set aside money for repairs, vacancies, and management. I mean, if it goes vacant for 6 months, that's a problem, right? So you gotta cover it. So here's a quick way to think about it. Add up all of your monthly carrying costs. That's your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and any building fees. Then look at what comparable units in your building or neighborhood are renting for. If the rent covers your costs and leaves you with a few $100s of positive cash flow, it's a good starting point. If the rent doesn't even cover your expenses, you'd be losing money every month just to hold on to the property. And that changes the math significantly. So let me give you a real example. Say you own a 2-bedroom condo in Brooklyn. Your mortgage is $2,800 a month, common charges are $600, taxes are about $400, and insurance is $100 a month, right? So you're at $3,900 a month in carrying costs. If similar 2 bedrooms in your building are renting for $4,000, you're only netting $100 a month before setting aside money for repairs, vacancies, maintenance. That's really, really tight. But that same apartment rents for $4,500, now there's $600 a month in positive cash flow. Starts to look a little bit more interesting, especially if the property is also constantly appreciating in value. Now let's talk about what happens if you sell. The biggest financial advantage of selling is the capital gains tax exclusion. If you lived in your home as your primary residence for at least 2 of the last 5 years, you could exclude up to $250,000 of profit or $500,000 if you married filed jointly. It's a huge deal. Let me show you why. Say you bought your apartment for $500,000 and now it's worth $800,000. $300,000 in profit. If you're married, the entire gain is tax-free. You walk away with that money and owe nothing on it. But here's the catch. If you convert it to a rental and sell it later, you might lose that exclusion. The rule says that you need to have lived there for 2 of the last 5 years. So if you rent it out for 4 years and then sell, you no longer qualify. Now that $300,000 in profit is taxable. And in New York, capital gain taxes hit hard. You've got federal capital gains tax, which is 15-20% for most people. New York State income tax, which can go up to 10.9%, plus New York City income tax up to 3.876%. Add all that up, you could be paying close to 30% on your gains. On $300,000, that's roughly $90,000 in taxes that you could have avoided by selling while you still qualified for that exclusion. So timing matters a lot here. Right now, let's talk about the other side. What are the advantages of renting it out? The biggest one is that you keep the asset. Real estate in New York City has historically appreciated over time a lot. If you hold on to the property for 10 or 15 years while a tenant is paying down your mortgage, you're building wealth in 2 ways at once, right? It's appreciating and you're paying down that equity. It's crazy. You're worth this. There's also tax benefits to being a landlord. You could deduct your mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance fees, repairs, depreciation. Depreciation is a big one. Even though your property might be going up in value, the IRS graciously lets you deduct a portion of the building's value each year as it's losing value, as if it's losing. And that deduction can offset a lot of your rental income and reduce your tax bill significantly. But being a landlord in New York City is not passive income, it's a responsibility. New York has some of the strongest tenant protection laws in the country. If your unit becomes rent stabilized, which can happen depending on the building and the history of the unit, there are limits on how much you can raise the rent. Evictions can take months, years. You're responsible for repairs, maintenance, and if you're not local, you'll likely need to hire a property manager, which could be 8 to 10% of your monthly rent. You also need to check your building's rules. Many co-op buildings have restrictions on subletting. Some limit how many years you can rent out your unit, and some require board approval for every tenant. If your building doesn't allow rentals, the whole conversation is over. Condos are generally more flexible, but you should still check out their bylaws. Now, here's another factor that people overlook. If you rent out your property and want to buy another one, lenders will look at your total debt obligations. Your existing mortgage counts against your debt to income ratio. Yes, they'll factor in the rental income, but usually only about 75% of it. So keeping your current property could limit how much you could borrow for your next home. Now, let me give you a framework for making this decision. Ask yourself these 5 questions. Does the property generate positive cash flow after all expenses, right? Because if it loses money every month, selling is usually the better move. Am I still within the capital gains exclusion window? If you live there at least 2 of the last 5 years, you can still sell tax-free up to that exclusion limit. Major financial advantage that has an expiration date. Can I handle being a landlord? Even with a property manager, things go wrong. Pipes burst, tenants don't pay, appliances break. Are you ready for that? Do you have money set aside for problems and issues? I mean, my water heater blew up at 3 o'clock in the morning the other day. That was a nightmare. You might get those calls, and then of course the next morning you better be there fixing it. Next, does my building allow rentals, especially for co-ops? This could be a deal breaker. And what does my next purchase look like? If you need maximum buying power for your next home, freeing up the equity in your current place might be the smartest play. Now, like anything else, there's no universally correct answer. I've helped clients sell and use the proceeds to buy their dream home. I've also helped clients hold onto properties that become incredible long-term investments. The key is running the numbers for your specific situation. I put together a free sell versus rent guide that walks you through all of these calculations step by step. It includes a simple worksheet to estimate your cash flow, your tax exposure if you sell now versus later, and a checklist of everything to consider before making that decision. You can download it on my website, ranolarealestate.com. The exact link will be below in the description and the pinned comment. If you want help running the numbers on your specific property, I'm happy to sit down with you and go through it. You can book a free consultation, again, down below. I'm going to have the link for you. It's via Calendly, and we will figure out the best move together. If this was helpful, make sure you just subscribe. I put out new videos every week about buying and selling real estate in New York City. I'll catch you on the next one.